Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap Limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure. Trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss. It is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also on Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics on my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @Doug_Pless. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures, and that certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And for the Nasdaq 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading. The first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day as well as the directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow on Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow on Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Hello, Hector. Welcome. Glad you're here. All right, here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, June 25th. First of all, I want to go with news items, economic data, and events for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then we'll review a few setups from earlier today in both the futures and stocks. And then we'll get to the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know, and I'd be glad to do that. All right, let's start with news items. So yesterday and today, Jerome Powell was testifying before Congress beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Yesterday it was the House, today the Senate. And that was not eventful. Let's take a look at the S&P 500 ES futures and Bookmap. All right, so again, the Jerome Powell began speaking at 10 a.m. and wrapped up maybe sometime around noon. I'm not quite sure. All right, upcoming for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, there are a couple of data releases at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, GDP, durable goods orders, and jobless claims. And then on Friday, the big data release of the week, the PCE data comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and there are a variety of Fed speakers throughout the week. All right, so that wraps up news items. Let's move on to positional analysis. And again, this is the ES Futures and Bookmap. And before I take a closer look at this chart, let's step back and take a look at a higher time frame. I'm going to go to the SPX, again, the underlying index. This is a 1 year, 1 day chart in Thinkorswim. Big picture. This is the February expiration, this red vertical line. That's when the drop began. And SPX made a nice V-shaped recovery with the low right around on April 7th. And then had most recently found resistance at the 60-50 level and broke above that level. So let's take a look at that. Let's go to a 30-day 1 hour chart. All right, so Monday. This is Monday. Tuesday, SPX gapped up between the close on Monday and then the open. SPX gapped up above that 60-50 level, or 60-50, 60-60 zone that had acted as resistance. Moved up. Yesterday found resistance at the 6100 call wall. Today gapped up above that level and is now trading back down below the 6100 call wall. And we'll take a closer look at that in just a moment. All right, let's take a look at the levels on this chart. First of all, the expected moves. Dashed purple lines showing the lower and upper weekly expected move. So on Tuesday, SPX moved up above the upper weekly expected move. And this is based on news of a ceasefire, Israel-Iran ceasefire. So SPX gapped up and moved up above the upper weekly expected move, or traded up above the upper weekly expected move, still up above that level. All right, the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move. Both of these levels, all these levels are based on the options market. Weekly expected move based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. And then the daily expected moves change every day. This is based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday. And I do post those levels in Discord every day the evening before. All right, let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels on this chart. These are shown with the dark red lines. I'm going to point out the key daily levels. First of all, the put wall is at 6,055. That's a strike with the largest net negative gamma, and that can be expected to act as support. That level did move up from yesterday, and that level lines up or coincides with we'll take a look at the Iron Condor, the Captain Condor, Iron Condor. That's the short put strike. So market makers are let's see, let me make sure I've got the right strikes. So yeah, market makers are long puts there. So that would market makers positive gamma. But anyway, that's the strike with a large net negative gamma. Can be expected to act as support. And that's also the volatility trigger. That is Spotgamma's volatility and gamma proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. And we'll take a closer look at gamma in just a couple of minutes. And we'll see there is some positive gamma down below and negative gamma up above. And both those levels did change from yesterday, and they line up with the short put strike of the Captain Condor, Iron Condor, that expires today. Next level up is actually I missed the absolute gamma strike, so that's actually the lowest key daily level today. That's at 6,000. That's the strike with the largest absolute positive and negative gamma. So that's where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. And then finally, the call wall remains at 6,100. That's a strike with large net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. And note SPX did trade up above that level earlier today. Found resistance at that level yesterday, traded up above earlier today, now trading back down below. All right, so again, the volatility trigger and put wall both shifted higher. That's based on the Captain Condor, Iron Condor. All right, let's take a look now at a 1 minute chart for SPX. This is showing data that began last week. So there was a downtrend last week. Then on Monday, SPX broke above that downtrend line, and that's also the 6,000 level. Gapped up on Tuesday. Found resistance at the call wall, 6,100 call wall yesterday. Gapped up above, and that level was in play earlier today, and now SPX moving down lower. All right, back to Bookmap now. All right, so Bookmap, here's that 6,100 call wall in play earlier today. And now price moving firmly below that. This SPY 607 level, large gamma 4 level. A lot of price action up and down around that level. And now SPX is broken down below that level. And note the point of control, this purple line right here, is right above that SPY 607 level. So I have SPX and SPY levels on this chart as well as key ES levels. So again, here's the SPX 6,100 call wall. And there's a pretty big difference in price between ES and SPX right now. And today it is 52 points, right around 52 points. So I'm showing SPX 6,100 at ES 6152. And I do post all the index relationships that I use every day in Discord. All right, so it looks like right now ES reversed lower at the SPY 607 level and found support at the SPX 6079 combo level, combo 3 level. All right, we'll get back to the live market in just a couple of minutes. All right, so again, I mentioned shifts in levels. Volatility trigger put wall shifted higher for SPX. Assuming there's no Iron Condor tomorrow, I expect those levels to shift back to more normal levels. And then for SPY, the volatility trigger and call wall both shifted higher as well. All right, let's move on to Nasdaq. Take a look at the levels in play. And we'll get to Gamma and then the live market, setups in the live market. All right, so downtrend in Nasdaq as well. Let's take a look at the underlying index components. Start with QQQ. Nice steady downtrend. So a reversal just after the open. And now QQQ trading down to there's a combo level just above the 540 absolute gamma strike. And looks like QQQ found support at that level earlier. then broke down below. Now that level may be acting as resistance. The only level higher for QQQ is the 545 call wall. All right, shifts in levels for QQQ. Volatility trigger, call wall, and absolute gamma strike all shifted higher. And the put wall did shift lower, and it was way down at 470, so not significant. So I do consider that a bullish hat trick for QQQ. And then for NDX, let's take a look at NDX. This is a combo level. Not really clear support or resistance. Well, maybe so. Support, resistance. And that's a large gamma 4. That's the highest spot gamma level for NDX. And then the 22,200 level where NDX is trading now. And that lines up pretty closely with the QQQ 540 absolute gamma strike. And this is also the absolute gamma strike for NDX. Support, now maybe resistance. So let's go to Bookmap, take a look at that. So that's the key level in play for today. Pretty close alignment with the absolute gamma strikes. 540 QQQ, 22,200. All right, so Nasdaq NQ futures trying to move higher above that level. We'll see in just a couple of minutes. All right, so those are the levels in play for both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. Let's take a quick look at Gamma, then we'll get to setups and the live market. So we'll go to trace. Oops. The trace tool available to Spotgamma subscribers. And first of all, let's step back in time. So this is the Gamma heat map. Let's go back to earlier today so we can see that iron condor a little bit more clearly. So this is 10 minutes after the cash open. This is the short call vertical and the short put vertical. And the idea is that Captain Condor, the trader who placed this trade, wants price to remain in that level within those short verticals to make full profit. All right, so that's just after the cash open. And these are options that expire today. So this is an iron condor that does expire today. So as we step through time, we can see the length of those bars diminishing as price stays away, and those options are very rapidly decaying. All right, the blue shading is showing positive gamma. Remember, in positive gamma, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure, so they are buying dips and selling reps. So the expectation is this zone of positive gamma acting as support. And then up above, the red shading indicates negative gamma. So if price starts to move up, price could move more rapidly up through that level, up through those levels. And again, a negative gamma, market makers trade with price. And this is also illustrated in the SPX equity hub here. This is showing as price increases. Gamma, shown by this line here, becomes more and more negative. So this is showing the path of least resistance to the upside. Not not considering anything else, not what traders are doing today. And traders are, we'll see more of that in just a minute. All right, so back to trace. Again, positive gamma support down below and negative gamma up above. And we'll keep an eye out for these strikes, Captain Condor, Iron Condor strikes. So again, that's 60, 50, 55 on the downside and 61, 20, 25 on the upside. All right, let's take a look at some setups now. Let's see what traders have been doing. First of all, in the S&P 500, and this is the hero signal. It is available to Spotgamma subscribers. Hero is hedging impact real-time options. There are two lines on this chart. The white line shows price for SPX, and this is the index signal. So the purple line is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity in real time for the S&P 500 index components. That's SPX, SPY, ES, and XSP. And a rising hero signal indicates traders are taking positive delta options positions. They are buying calls and or selling puts. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to sell or buy futures to hedge their delta exposure. And then a falling hero signal indicates traders are taking negative delta options positions. They are buying puts and or selling calls. Again, market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to sell futures to hedge their delta exposure. And generally, the hero signal, negative for today, delta notional negative at right now, minus 2.88 billion. So that's decent size. Delta notional is negative. All right, let's zoom in on this just a little bit. And actually, I'm going to shift to puts and calls and focus on the hero patterns here. So this is a call peak pattern just after 9:45 and another call peak pattern just before 10 a.m. Both of those setting up nice shorts. And here's another call peak pattern right around 10:45. So 9:45, 10, and 10:45, three call peak patterns, three very nice short setups. All right, let's take a look at the equity signal. A little bit different, typically smoother. So what this is showing is traders were buying calls. So the orange line is showing calls, blue line showing puts. Traders are buying calls. First thing, bullish opening drive, as they have been conditioned to do for quite a while now. Buy calls at the open and take your profits later on in the day. They quickly took their foot off the gas. Some more call buyers came in, and then they took the foot off the gas again, and price moved lower. So overall today, as far as trading signals go, I like the S&P 500 index component. So this one is the equity signal showing options trades, market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. And again, this is the index signal. It's typically a little bit more noisy, but often provides more clues about the turning points. And just like I pointed out, again, 9:45, 10 a.m., and 10:45, great opportunities for short. So let's take a look at those. Let's go back to the S&P 500. Let's zoom in a bit. Give me just a moment to adjust the screen. All right, so here's the first short setup. Right here, trend break. The volume dots in Bookmap show market buy minus sell. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. Magenta dots indicate more sellers than buyers. You can see with that trend break, the aggressive sellers come in, and good for a short scalp. About 8 points, 7 or 8 points, depending on when you got in there. And then that's the first short setup at the first call peak. Next call peak, 15 minutes later. And again, buyers are exhausted, small green volume dot. Price moves lower. Again, as traders start selling calls. And then here's the last one. This is a beauty. So let's take a look at the lines in the subchart. First of all, the light blue line is showing iceberg orders, and a falling line indicates sell iceberg orders. That's what large traders use, iceberg orders, to hide their size. So very nice short setup there, and this happened. And you can see this volume bar coinciding with the large sell iceberg orders. And for some reason, I could not find the on-chart indicator to show this. So anyway, it is in the subchart. Large traders selling with iceberg orders. And then this rising yellow line shows a stop run, buy stop orders, stop run up into the right around the 6160 level. Some limit sell orders in the order book there, and price reverses just below those levels with that third call peak pattern, setting up the best short of the day so far. Down to this liquidity. These are limit buy orders. The heat map and Bookmap shows a history of limit orders in the order book, and those limit buy orders acting as somewhat support there. All right, let's zoom over a little bit. So we can see ES move back up, tested this combo level, 607.35 combo 1 level, a very important combo level. Combo 1 broke down below 607, sliced all the way through this, all these limit buy orders, reversed higher back to the 607 level. All right, let's zoom out now. All right, so most recently, price moved back up to that 607 level right here, and they point of control just above that and reversed higher, reversed lower, sorry. So overall today in the S&P 500 and many other stocks, the bulls are taking a break today. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Downtrend continues. Let's go back to Hero now. Let's go back to the total signal. So net for the day now down to minus 4.46 billion negative delta notional. So that's a decent sized number for this time of day. Check equities. Still slightly positive for the day. And we'll take a look at some Mag 7 stocks. So there are some Mag 7 stocks that that have been bullish today. All right, let's move on to Nasdaq. All right, very clear today in Nasdaq. This is just like the S&P 500 index components. This is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the Nasdaq index components, and that is, go back, that is QQQ and NDX, just the indexes that we looked at before. And traders continue to take negative delta options positions. And of course, the delta notional is not nearly as large as the S&P 500, but firmly negative. And more peak patterns here, setting up shorts, 9:45, 10 o'clock, 1045, just like the S&P 500. And we'll take a look at the other signal that that we use for the Nasdaq. That is the Mag 7 signal, showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. And we'll see in just a minute, it's a mixed picture of Mag 7 stocks. So again, just like the S&P 500, I think the Nasdaq signal, index signal, is providing much more clarity today. All right, so let's go to Nasdaq. NQ futures. Downtrend. And again, here's these two key levels for today. In the absolute gamma strike for NDX, 22,200. And then the QQQ 540 absolute gamma strike just below that. All right, so now price is down below, and Nasdaq is down below both those levels. All right, back to Hero, and the Hero index signal continues to move lower. And by the way, this is price for NDX here in the Nasdaq index signal, and price for QQQ and the Mag 7 signal. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at some stocks, then we'll get to the live market. And I'm just going to quickly move through some of these stocks. So this is Apple. Let's zoom. I'm going to shift to puts and calls. Go back to Apple. And call buyers definitely driving price in Apple today. So in Apple, there was a bullish opening drive. Full alert comes in just a couple of minutes after the cash open. Get your attention. Call peak pattern. So about a 7-minute bullish opening drive. Then the call buyers quickly take the foot off the gas. Then they came back in about 10:15, 10:20. And then took their foot off the gas right around 10:45. And again, that was the last peak pattern in the indexes at 10:45. So bullish opening drive, call peak, call buyers starting to come in, and then call exhaustion. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. Go to Apple. Bullish opening drive up to the liquidity at 203.50. Looks like that is consumed. Then those are limit sell orders in the order book. Typically come in for stocks at the cash open, most at the cash open, and will stay there till those orders will stay in the order book until they're filled. And then it looks like some more sellers came in just after the price moved lower. So bullish opening drive, call peak, call buyers come back in, and then they take the foot off the gas. Now price down below the opening print. And looks like heading down toward the high liquidity at 200. Let's go back to Hero. And note 200 is the hedge wall key gamma strike. And that's where those limit buy orders are located. So Apple, if it continues to move lower, that's the obvious target. All right, next stock, Google. Google bullish opening drive. 170 call wall key gamma strike. So bullish opening drive. When traders buy calls, market makers sell the calls. They have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. Call buyers take the foot off the gas. start buying calls again as price breaks above the 170 call wall key gamma strike. And in this case for Google, they continued to buy calls until just before noon. Then they finally took the foot off the gas, and now Google consolidating back down to the 170 level. So Google is one of the bullish Mag 7 stocks today. So you can see all the magenta volume dots here. So the call buyers were definitely driving price higher just after the open. And traders were selling that, but the call buyers were definitely in charge. Then the aggressive buyers start to come in. You can see the shift in volume dots here, the large green volume dots coming in, moving Google higher. And then finally the call buyers took the foot off the gas right around noon. And now Google is moving lower. All right, that's Google. So we're focusing on the hero patterns, what options traders are doing and how that's driving price. All right, very bullish day in NVIDIA. Let's take a look. Back to hero, NVIDIA. Bullish opening drive. Price breaks above the 150 call wall. All right, the hero signal just moved a little bit, but you can see there is a flow alert came in right at the cash open. It keeps disappearing. But you'll focus at the bottom of the orange line there. You can see a little bit of a green for a flow alert. Let's zoom in on this, see if we can see that a little bit more closely. All right, so there was a flow alert just at the cash open. Traders aggressively buying calls. Again, price breaks above the call wall. So remember, in the call wall, traders are long calls, market makers short calls. So their delta notional is becoming more negative as price increases. Those calls go in the money, and they have to continue to buy calls. They want to remain delta neutral. So that's another factor in the bullish move higher. Traders buy calls, take the foot off the gas right around 10:45. Again, that was the last call peak and the index signals. And then they resume buying calls right around 12:50, something like that. All right, so that is the entire day so far. So bullish opening drive. Take the foot off the gas. NVIDIA consolidates. Call buyers start to come in again. So let's go back to Bookmap. NVIDIA. Bullish opening drive up to 153 liquidity. Absorption to that level. Call buyers take the foot off the gas. Call buyers start to come in again. Now, NVIDIA consolidating again. All right, so that's NVIDIA, bullish. We'll take a look at Tesla, just the opposite today. Tesla very bearish. So you remember on Monday, Tesla was bullish based on the quote successful robo-taxi rollout. And then some more information apparently came out about some issues. And now Tesla moving much lower today. All right, so let's see what options traders have been doing. Back to hero. Again, we're going to focus on what options traders are doing and the hero patterns. So this is a bearish opening drive and also bearish momentum. When the blue line and orange line move in the same direction, that's a very powerful directional indicator. In this case, traders are buying puts, selling calls. Market makers take the opposite side of those trades, and they have to sell Tesla stock to edge their delta exposure. So the key gamma, the spot gamma levels, 340 key gamma strike, and the 335 hedge wall, and Tesla sliced through both those levels. And then it looks like the options traders took their foot off the gas right around 10:25, 10:30. And now Tesla consolidating, licking its wounds. All right, so that's Tesla. Great short setup today. Very clear. All right, so it looks like now some aggressive buyers have been coming in as Tesla approached this 320 liquidity. You can see the green volume dots, and price reversed as the options traders took their foot off the gas and some aggressive buyers came in, not quite reaching the 320 limit buy orders. Now Tesla stuck right on the 325 level. All right, let's take a look at some stocks that have been in the news. Non-Mag 7 stocks, but stocks that have been in the news. First, AMD has been very strong for a couple weeks. Nice reverse head and shoulders this morning, setting up a very nice long. Let's see what options traders are doing. Back to Hero, AMD. So options traders were not really doing a whole lot in the morning. There were some call sellers. Price started to move higher. And it looks like in this case, the call buyers definitely followed price. So price started to move up. Again, remember that inverse head and shoulders. Price started to move up. And then a nice call peak pattern. Again, 1045. That is the last call peak in the indexes again. And the call buyers took the foot off the gas. And AMD now consolidating. Back to Bookmap. So inverse head and shoulders. Price starts to move up. Cumulative volume delta rising sharply. And then call buyers join the move higher. Call buyers take the foot off the gas, as well as the aggressive buyers, and AMD consolidating now. So the two semiconductor stocks that I follow more closely, AMD and NVIDIA, both having good bullish days. All right, next stock, CRCL, recent IPO, has been in the news recently, has moved up substantially, and then started to move down yesterday. So if you recall, on Monday, we took a look at a short setup in CRCL on Monday. Now at that time, CRCL, the two brokers that I used to trade stocks, Thinkorswim and TradeStation, both had CRCL as hard to borrow. So in TradeStation, I would have to use their short locate tool to locate shares to short. And Thinkorswim does that automatically for you. It does charge margin interest even if you just place the order and it never executes. So it will locate those shares for you automatically. And today, the Thinkorswim margin interest is pretty low. So it was about $3 or $4 per day to short 100 shares of stock. So not too bad for Thinkorswim. And of course, I haven't checked the price of puts, but checking on Monday, they were quite expensive. So a little bit of an unwind here for CRCL. It's been so strong, so bullish since it's open. And by the way, that short that I was talking about on Monday, I think that might have been it. Let me check that just a minute. Let me scroll up in Discord. So I believe that was a short at 260 with a move down to 255 and 250. And that's exactly what happened. So a good good short for 10 points. And I did post that in Discord. All right, so that's Circle unwinding a bit. Last stock I want to take a look at is Palantir. Another stock that's been very bullish recently. So let's go to Circle first, see what options traders have been doing. So we'll go back to Circle, and we'll need to see what options traders have been doing today. So Circle, traders buying puts, selling calls, 220 key gamma strike, and price did move down to the 200 put wall. So key level for today, 200 put wall. Looks like Circle did find support at that level. And when Circle moved down to that level, that looks like when the put buyers and call sellers took their foot off the gas. So not as quite as pronounced a bearish opening drive as Tesla, but definitely bearish opening drive, bearish momentum, and then options traders, they took their foot off the gas as price moved down to the 200 put wall, doing its job, acting as support. It looks like some call buyers did come in at that level. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so there's the 200 level. And note all the liquidity there. All the limit buy orders from right around 212 down to 200. And it looks like most of those were consumed. Looks like these orders were pulled there. So some more orders pulled as well. But it looks like the orders at 200 were definitely consumed. All right, that's Circle. And then last stock that has been very bullish recently, Palantir. Looks like traders taking profits. Let's see what options traders are doing. Go to Palantir. Very brief bullish opening drive. 945 lining up with the first call peak pattern in the indexes. Bullish opening drive. Options traders quickly take the foot off the gas. So the call buyers have taken the foot off the gas, and then they have started buying puts. And Palantir moving lower. All right, so now the put buyers driving Palantir lower, down below the 143 call wall. Next level down, 140 key gamma strike, then below that 139 hedge wall. So now it looks like Palantir is trading down below that 143 call wall. That's right here. All right, any questions? Does anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? All right, so we've taken a look at some great setups based on patterns in Bookmap and patterns, hero patterns, options trading patterns that we've seen before, and we know how price typically reacts with those hero patterns as options traders buy and sell puts and calls. All right, let's go back. Let's check the indexes now. All right, so the downtrend continues in the SP 500. And again, most recently support at that SPX 6079 combo 3 level. Let's check Nasdaq. All right, so Nasdaq now stuck right around these two absolute gamma strikes, QQQ 540 and NDX 22,200. Let's go back to Hero. I'm going to shift back the total signal, and let's go through and check the indexes. All right, so for the S&P 500 index signal, it is pretty much flattened out, chopping up and down, but flat. Equity signal also looking flat. Nasdaq moving up, but now maybe rolling over. Let's check Mag 7. All right, Mag 7 moving up a little bit. All right, so net for the day, delta notional is positive for the Mag 7 as a whole. Let's do a quick check of the Mag 7. This is a chart in Thinkorswim. It's the Mag 7 plus Palantir. So Apple slightly bearish for the day compared to the open. Definitely bearish for Amazon. Google, remember the bullish opening drive. Now under VWAP. Bearish day for Meta. Microsoft, very bullish for NVIDIA. Tesla, very bearish opening drive, then consolidation. And then Palantir, very bearish as well. All right, so that's how the Mag 7 fares now. So looks like NVIDIA definitely leading the way to the upside, and Tesla and Palantir to the downside. Hector asks, on Hero chart, when total delta on right column is at bottom, it could be interpreted as an exhaustion of downtrend movement. Potentially, but I would look for I would look for a couple things. I would look for some level of support, some key Spotgamma level. And in the S&P 500, we can always take a look at trace, looking for a zone of positive gamma down below to act as support. So we can also look at delta pressure. All right, so right now, this is showing more neutral. So typically in positive gamma, we would look for the blue as buying support and red as selling pressure. And that's in positive gamma. So let's go back to gamma. And actually gamma is slightly negative. So let's go back to delta pressure. So negative gamma, we would interpret that just as just the opposite. So buying support above with the delta pressure. Let's check charm pressure. And this is showing selling pressure red due to time decay throughout the possible range of prices for SPX today. All right, so back to gamma. All right, so if I'm looking for an exhaustion of downtrend, again, I'm going to look at gamma and also Hero to see if some traders are starting to take positive delta options positions. And note the delta notional, total delta notional, is less negative than we looked at. It was lower than more negative. It was negative 4 billion something. So now not as negative. Then I would also look at the heat map and Bookmap. So earlier today, the buying support was very clear in that 61.40 to 45 zone. Not so much. So again, most recently supported the 60.79 combo 3 level. Let's check Nasdaq. Go back to Hero. All right, so the Nasdaq index signal is moving higher. Mag 7 signal also moving higher. So in this case, I would look for potential support. If price can break above these absolute gamma strikes in Nasdaq. Note also in Nasdaq, large traders have been fading this move lower with iceberg orders. Looks like they've been doing that all day. Gradually buying weakness in Nasdaq as price moves lower. All right, questions, comments? Anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? All right, let's circle back through some of these stocks we looked at earlier today. Let's check NVIDIA. NVIDIA continues to move higher. So this level 153 that acted as resistance before, absorption of that level, and now those limit sell orders at 153 were consumed, and NVIDIA buyers taking price up to 154. So a very nice bullish day in NVIDIA. Let's see if Tesla is recovering any. All right, so Tesla's still stuck around the 325 level. See what Circle's doing. Chopping around 205, still above the 200 put wall. Zoom in just a bit, see if we can get more clues in the heat map. All right, back to Hero. All right, the Hero signal pretty flat. So Hector, I would definitely interpret this as an exhaustion of the downtrend, especially with this 200 put wall right here. 200 put wall. Options traders take the foot off the gas. Definitely exhaustion. Back to Bookmap. Back to the S&P 500. Still chopping in a very narrow range. Nasdaq now breaking above that absolute gamma strike levels or the absolute gamma strike levels. All right, last call for questions, last call for stocks. All right, remember, data releases tomorrow and Friday. Tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, GDP, durable goods, jobless claims, and the big data release of the week, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, the PCE data. All right, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you next Monday. Thanks again. Bye.